Welcome back to today's build. Whether you're just looking for upgrades or have no idea how to build this deck, I'll be your guide to this wonderful game we all love. Let's get started. Today's deck will blow your mind. Their name is Captain Engathrod, and this is the grand design. The first thing you can see on this card is that your horrors have menace and get a combat damage trigger to mill opponents, so this looks like a very aggressive strategy. But there's a conflict with the payoff for those attacks, which is theft of enemy permanents. You, of course, get more value when stealing the things with bigger mana values. But if the player you steal from is ever knocked out, you lose all you've taken from them. An outcome made even easier by the damage you have to deal to get this mill. So we're incentivized to find ways to increase mill without needing to slash life totals for it. Furthermore, it's a lot harder to win by milling someone out through this mill damage than it is regular combat damage, because your opponents effectively start with 92 life instead of the usual 40. But this strategy also isn't particularly good at attacking for large amounts of damage. Lastly, since you can't reliably predict what you'll have access to in enemy yards, it's very difficult to assemble a win from the theft component of this strategy. These difficulties are very limiting for the deck, and its best home is likely Bracket 2. Luckily for us, as my patrons know, the captain is what's called a quadratic growth target, and finding ways to clone him not only amplifies our mill rate past our damage rate, it also increases our ability to steal from enemy yards, making sure they never make use of the cards we're pouring out of their decks. First, we'll be cutting these horrors. We are in colors that don't have abundant sources of mana, and we're already in need of it as is, since our commander also costs 5 mana. We're cheating costs of enemy creatures, not ours. We simply cannot afford this. Further, Brain Stealer and Guilt Feeder both accelerate life loss more than they accelerate mill, potentially costing us our stolen cards. Instead, we'll swap for these cards to manage our resources and mill more efficiently. Next, I'm cutting these cards because they're not aligned well with our strategy. Sewer Nemesis mills on enemy turns, not on ours, so we can't steal those cards. And Aboleth Spawn, while cheap, is unreliable and doesn't actually contribute to our strategy in any way besides being a horror. And the Night Howler only actually tracks creature cards, which we're actively removing from enemy graveyards, so he'll never quite be at home here. We'll be making these swaps. Lastly, I'm cutting these cards. Endless Evil definitely makes horrors, which will eventually lead to mill, but this is just too slow. For 3 mana on my upkeep to make a 1/1 that can't even attack that turn is very bad. Likewise, Hoard of Cunning is also really slow, and since we're constantly on the attack, we won't have the blockers to defend the Monarch, making this free card draw for our opponents. Extract from Darkness is again just too inefficient. 5 mana for 2 mill and a theft, when Breach the Multiverse is only 2 mana more for almost 5 times the effect, making this unplayable, so we'll be swapping these in. So what do our lands look like?
Other than your run-of-the-mill dual lands, we will be playing Temple, Nykthos, and Horizon to try to gain a mana advantage wherever possible, while Path of Ancestry and Spymaster's Vault give us a little bit of card selection to help compensate for our lack of abundant mana sources.
So what's our timeline?
Early on, we're looking for ramp because we'll have so little mana to work with otherwise. We'll follow up with some cheap and easy setup horrors so that we can get some mill and theft the turn our commander is cast on turn 4. We spend the next several turns copying our commander and slowing down our opponents, with plenty of interaction to buy time, to spread out a critical mass of horrors that we will eventually turn into a critical mass of commanders that mill opponents for Eldritch Horror Space God numbers. Now that you have an idea of how the deck plays, let's chat about power. Mill is a controversial strategy to some players, but to the experienced player who knows cards are more accessible in your yard than your library, or that your yard can be a second hand, being milled or having your cards commandeered really isn't that big a deal. What I would recommend though is not playing this against brand new decks. Mill and theft do rob that player of the chance to see how their brand new deck performs under their control, so be mindful of that when sleeving this up for game night. In terms of power, I think this is a definite improvement on the precon, but still safely within the realm of bracket 2, with no real reason to try to take it to bracket 3. A special thanks to all my amazing patrons. I started this channel to speak more to the game theory of Magic, which often takes up more time than YouTube is kind for, and the generous support of my patrons makes it possible to create the way that I want to. Patrons have access to cut content, extended discussions, guides, and resources for their favorite decks, as well as the occasional spell table game over on Discord. Consider supporting the channel today. If you like this video, give it a share and subscribe for more so you don't miss any of these upcoming videos.